Have you ever felt a little overwhelmed with all of the choices and considerations you must have in choosing your tree's bare root? Well, hopefully in this video, I'll be able to provide you some answers and explain to you exactly why choosing your trees bare rooted this time of year is your best choice. Bare root fruit tree season here in the lower 48 starts sometime around January 1st and runs through March. There's many different reasons why, in my opinion, choosing your tree's bare root is a superior choice. The first that I'd like to point out is just the incredible amount of diversity that you have available to you. And the sooner that you can get to the nursery sometime in January, you're going to have a much greater selection from which to choose. There's several different reasons why you may want to purchase from a commercially run nursery over someplace like a box store. Box stores at this time of year sell bare root stock as well. However, in my opinion, you're going to be far better served going to some place where they have knowledgeable staff, which can help you navigate through some of the questions that you may have. You're going to get a much greater selection, and the plants themselves, in my opinion, are going to be much healthier. And lastly is the cost savings, which in many cases can be significant, up to 1/3 to 1/2 less than what you'll pay once these trees later in the season are potted up. Here's an example of trees that you may find in big box stores like Home Depot and Tractor Supply. And although in many cases these trees will grow and bear fruit for you, it's really hard to make an accurate assessment because of the limited amount of information provided about the tree's characteristics, and you're not able to adequately inspect the roots, and you just don't know how long they've been sitting in these plastic bags. Does size matter? Well, yes, it does, but probably not in the way that you were thinking. Not necessarily in the size of the tree, rather the size of the rootstock. The selection of your rootstock is actually a pretty important decision because it's the basis from which your tree grows. Generally speaking, you're going to want a rootstock that's larger than about 1/2 inch. So 5/8 to 3/4 should give you a pretty well-developed and healthy and robust root system. It's also important to match the rootstock with the soil type that you're planting into. So whether you have clay soil or whether you have sandy soil, they have specifically adapted and developed rootstocks for those soil conditions. In addition to having certain adaptations in various different soil conditions, rootstocks are also selected for their ability to resist pest and disease, as well as thrive in a variety of different climates. It's essentially what determines the overall longevity and productivity of the tree itself. This is a tree that I planted last year, and this is the scar or the graft union between the rootstock below, and above this scar is the scion, which is a flavor top nectarine, and this happens to be a Lovell peach rootstock. It'll do well in clay soil, and so I specifically selected this rootstock for this planting location. The graft union is essentially an open wound, and until it scabs over, it's an area of susceptibility and a portal of entry for fungus and disease. So it is something that you're going to want to inspect vigorously before you ever pull that tree from the sand pit. I'm going to show you a couple of different examples of trees that were recently purchased, and also some trees that were purchased within the last couple of years that are well on their way to healing. This is a tree that was just purchased and planted yesterday. And as you can see, there's a nice callus that's developing around this graft union. This is exactly what you want. Here's a representation of a callus that's developed on a 2-year-old tree, and it's nearly closed this wound up entirely. By contrast, this is a tree that was planted the same time, and it's taking a little bit longer to develop that full callus. This graft union would be preferable to this graft union. Some of the branches on your tree that you're selecting may have some damage. That may not be an issue because those branches may not be contributing to the overall shape of the tree after the first pruning. What's more of a concern is any tissue damage that you may have to that central leader or that scion that's attached to the rootstock. So what's the story with all these tags? Some trees have one tag, and other trees you'll find may have multiple tags. And it really just depends on the tagging system used by the parent nursery. Whatever tagging system is used, you should expect to find a minimum the following information.
Personally, I would go double jewel.
Double jewel, just for the showy bloom?
Yeah, there's a chance the early treat might not fruit for you.
Yeah, perfect. Here's an example of a single cultivar having 4 tags attached to it. And this tag right here is a picture tag, which is very useful because it not only gives you a view of what the fruit may look like, but on the back it has information related to the specific characteristics of this cultivar. This white tag gives you all that information, however, it does not provide a picture. And below that you've got what rootstock this comes from, and then caliper size in inches. Caliper size refers to diameter in inches measured just above the graft union. Taking a closer look at this picture tag, there's some specific information you're going to want to pay attention to. This top portion just refers to some of the characteristics you can expect with this particular cultivar. A harvest season is usually broken down into early, mid, and late season, and it's a good idea when selecting your trees and building your orchard to consider spreading that out so that you'll be able to obtain a yield throughout the entire season. Below that, it shows you what the winter chilling requirement is. Deciduous fruit trees have a chilling requirement, or the minimum number of hours. They must be under 45 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the winter. If they fail to meet that requirement, they could have a reduced yield or possibly no yield for the year. There are chill calculators available online, which will help you to assess what the requirements are for your local area based on past and present weather history. Another really important consideration in selecting your trees is just making sure that you know if that tree is self-fruitful or it's going to require another tree to pollinate and set fruit. It's a good idea to try to envision what you want your tree to look like once you get it home, and then you prune it to an appropriate size. My preference is to find a tree that has some established branches closer to the graft union rather than farther away. So if you have limited space, an option may be to get something that has multiple cultivars all on the same rootstock. You've got an apricot, Babcock peach, Fantasia nectarine, and Alberta peach, all on the same Nemagard rootstock. Nemagard rootstock is going to be root knot nematode resistant and do well in sandier type soils. This is a 4-in-1 that I like quite a bit. There's a lot that I like about it. I like the overall structure of this particular tree. It's nice and low. A lot of this is going to get removed from the top once I get it home. And there is some damage up here that I'm not concerned with. Essentially 0 tissue damage. And once I pull this out of the pit, I'll take a look and see how the root structure looks. Has a nice, healthy, robust root structure. Once you've purchased your trees, just ensure that the roots stay moist and don't dry out on the ride home. And once you get home, you can either heel them in or plant them directly. I hope this video answered a few questions. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.